What's worse than an evil Fruit Loop? How about two evil Fruit Loops? Today we're looking at a killer couple. Many true crime followers may be thinking folie à deux at this point, but I think it may have been like that towards the end of their exploits. But I don't believe it was at first, and I'll explain why when we get to that point in our crazy journey. Today we're looking at Benjamin and Erika Sifrit and the bizarre obsession that led to their downfall. This is Murder of Crows.
Say that you're ready, but you won't like it. You say that you're ready, but you won't like it. Silence all the crows, lining up in little rows. A sudden chill surrounds me. Silence all the crows, see come out and say you're wrong. A sudden chill.
Love is a powerful force and it can make people do peculiar things. But most people err on the side of positive things. I once wrote and self-published a book of poetry I wrote for my significant other. Strange? Maybe. But still a positive action in the name of love. But sometimes Cupid's arrows are a portent of a violence that is to come in the name of love. But before we reach this nasty point in the story, let's look at the early lives of our antagonists until their paths cross later in their lives. Starting with the very slightly older of the two, Benjamin Adam Sifrit was born on October the 21st, 1977, to his parents Elizabeth and Craig Sifrit in Esterville, Iowa. His early life was dominated by a desire to join the military, and in particular to become a Navy SEAL. This started with high school experiences where he was both a competitive swimmer and was also a lifeguard. He was supremely fit and ultra competitive. He knew his own mind and so was very confident. It's hard to work out if this was initially bravado and showing off, or a genuine belief in himself, or perhaps a combination of the two. But as well as being confident, he did have tendencies towards anger and a short fuse. His confidence, however, was well merited, and when he began his SEAL training, he was one of the strongest and fittest men in his class. But he could often rub people up the wrong way, with his confidence tipping over into arrogance and his hot-headedness often getting him into trouble. His opinions were often divisive. So while he definitely knew his own mind and travelled his own path, certain choices, like having a huge swastika tattoo on his chest, seemed certain to provoke people. I have to mention at this point that he often went by the nickname BJ, which sends my mind in different directions. My filthy and campy carry-on comedy brain goes to BJ, you know, like a what's it job. But then there's the ancient entertainment archival brain, which takes me to an old TV show called BJ and the Bear. Either way, I think the laughability suits the cockwomble he would turn out to be. Erika Elaine Grace was born on February the 3rd, 1978, in Roaring Spring, Pennsylvania, to parents Charlotte and Gerald Grace. Now, Gerald ran a successful construction company. So, while growing up, money was never an issue for Erika. And as an only child, she never wanted for anything. So home life was never a challenge. She was a successful athlete in high school, becoming a prominent member of the school's basketball team. She was academically very capable, being an honor roll student, and her success on the basketball court earned her a partial athletic scholarship to Mary Washington University in Fredericksburg, Virginia. But somewhere behind the academic and athletic success, there was a girl who relied on the praise of others to feel emotionally content. Perhaps being a daddy's girl and growing up without having to share the attention meant that she learnt that she got the greatest rewards by drawing praise from those around her, meaning that impressing those around her became massively important to Erika getting what she wanted in her life. Now, in 1998, BJ and Erika crossed paths, and the attraction between them was immediately apparent. They were both extremely athletic, fit people, and they were simply drawn to one another. It probably helped from BJ's point of view that it became clear to him quite early in the blossoming relationship that Erika could be quite readily manipulated. Erika, for her part, became completely obsessed with BJ, to the point that he could effectively do no wrong in her eyes. With a pairing like this, what could possibly go wrong? Well, hang on a wee while and I'll tell you. But long story short, quite a bit could go wrong. In a completely impulsive move that pretty much showed the personality of both parties, particularly in relation to their relationship, they eloped within a few weeks of meeting, with not even their parents attending their wedding. But they were happy. For now, at least. In the coming months, BJ began to show signs of his true self in his ongoing Navy SEAL training at North Carolina's Camp Lejeune. His desire to have his new wife with him when this was forbidden for those in training, BJ would regularly sneak Erika onto the base. And this did not always go unnoticed. And due to this and a generally bad attitude, he began to be increasingly insubordinate and was going absent without leave with increasing frequency. Now, despite the turmoil of the personal relationship at this time, Erika managed to graduate cum laude with a degree in history in 2000. But in the same year, BJ was court-martialed at Camp Lejeune for a variety of offences, including, as suggested, absence without leave and insubordination. One particular Navy prosecutor said BJ seemed to have developed utter disregard for authority. Probably not good when you're in the armed forces, one would imagine. The exact circumstances surrounding the collapse of his career are unclear, but apparently he left an assignment one day and sped off in a car going 50 miles an hour in a 15-mile-an-hour zone. Captain E.F. Crail, serving as his defense counsel, said, "This is a sailor who was showing good qualities and got his SEAL qualification and everything. Apparently something happened in his last command where he lost that designation. He seems from that to have completely lost motivation for the Navy. He ended up being dishonorably discharged from the Navy on the grounds of bad conduct." Strangely, none of his discharge paperwork apparently cites his Nazi leanings as a mark against him. The mind boggles. So, we have two fitness freaks, one of whom is a Rambo Commando Chuck Norris wannabe with a short fuse, now at a loose end following an undignified release from the Navy. Ooh, what to do? Well, if you didn't say the obvious answer of open a scrapbook store, then what the hell is wrong with you? Jesus, isn't it obvious? Anywho, Erika's well-to-do daddy gave them the money to set up a shop in keeping with one of Erika's other passions, that of scrapbooking. And I'm sure you can imagine how this kind of life and career sat with BJ, Captain Machismo McTestosterone Sifrit. You can see from 100 yards away that BJ is one of life's risk takers. So to be fair, you can't really imagine him at a workbench with his collage materials and a Pritt stick. So it wasn't long before those ants in his pants were really irritating him, and he needed to do something fun. So BJ Sifrit in a scrapbooking store was like putting the Tasmanian devil in a library. Not the best idea. So naturally he was looking for thrills. As with most people of his ilk, he started small, and Erika's interest was piqued by the possibility of her adding to one of her more unusual interests, that being Hooters memorabilia. So the unlikely partners in crime started with a series of break-ins, several of which were focused on Hooters establishments. At this point, in efforts to perhaps impress and satisfy BJ, Erika began taking narcotics and drinking heavily. I have no doubt that were it not for BJ and his influence, she would not have gone down this path. I am not condoning her role in what came later, far from it, as she was free to make her own choices. But I cannot imagine her taking any of these actions in the absence of BJ the Turd Meister. By the way, at this time, in another nod to thrill-seeking, Erika began buying large reptiles for BJ to keep as pets, including a large snake that, obviously, BJ named Hitler. Oh, he's a lovely man, isn't he? In 2002, the couple decided to take their first trip together since their marriage. They chose the Memorial Day weekend, with Memorial Day itself being the last Monday in May, which in 2002 would have been the 27th of May. And they decided to go to Ocean City in Maryland. And they rented a penthouse apartment at the Rainbow Condominium Complex. Sounds like a lovely and fun place, but for what was to happen there later. Another couple who had chosen the same location for a weekend getaway were Martha Jean Crutchley, now known widely as Jeannie, and Joshua Ford. At 51, Jeannie was nearly 20 years older than Joshua, but her youthful outlook and joie de vivre meant that they were a good match, and the couple from Fairfax, Virginia were also celebrating a year of living together. Now, on the Saturday evening, which would have been May the 25th, the couple got onto a bus to the downtown bar area where they were heading for dinner and drinks and whatever the night had in store. Now, on this bus, they met the Sifrits, who were outgoing and ebullient, and the two couples immediately hit it off. And the Sifrits invited them to join them at a nightclub. A nightclub that was called because it was near the sea, it was called Secrets. Did you see what they did there? Anyway, Joshua and Jeannie readily agreed, and it seems that much fun was had by all, since when the club was closing, the Sifrits suggested that they all go back to BJ and Erika's apartment for more drinks. And so the four of them headed towards that apartment. So far, so good. So all seemed perfectly normal. But when Josh and Jeannie failed to turn up back at work after the holiday weekend, their concerned co-workers reported them missing to the police. Now, around this time, the Sifrits were learning the lesson known to bird watchers that report people who steal eggs from families of owls. And that lesson is, you do not steal from hooters. On the night of May the 30th, or more accurately the early hours of the 31st, a silent alarm at a Hooters restaurant in Ocean City was triggered. When police attended, they spotted two people, one male and one female, leaving the restaurant carrying piles of merchandise. How terribly subtle. Upon being apprehended, both were carrying guns and knives. Now, at this point, had they just been arrested and bailed, their other activities may have remained hidden. But Erika showed how badly she was suited to this kind of endeavour by having a panic attack and crying hysterically upon arrest. She asked the attending police to get some anxiety medication from her purse. But in the purse, as well as the anxiety meds, were ID cards belonging to Joshua Ford and Jeannie Crutchley. Since the Sifrits refused to account for how they had these IDs in their possession, the police followed the trail to the apartment that the dodgy duo had rented in the hopes of finding the couple that they now knew had been reported missing. Now, the more they searched the apartment, the worse it got for the Sifrits. From finding pictures of Jeannie and Josh, the key to Jeannie and Josh's condo, traces of cocaine, blood splatter in the master bedroom, a bullet hole in the bathroom wall, spent bullets, one of which showed traces of blood. Sloppy, guys, sloppy. But it wasn't looking good. It wasn't looking good. And then further forensics found that The spent bullets had been shot from the handgun that had been in Erika's possession when she was arrested. Additionally, the blood traces on the bullet, that blood was found to be a DNA match to Josh Ford. Now at the police station, BJ immediately lawyered up. But Erika became a spouting well of information. And while only the Sifrits know precisely what happened, and unsurprisingly, their precise roles within that evening would become a case of he said, she said, as first Erika turned on BJ during police questioning, and later at trial BJ would do likewise. But a picture of what happened that night did start to clarify. It seems that BJ actually hid Erika's purse when the foursome got back to the apartment, before accusing Jeannie and Josh of stealing from them. Jeannie and Josh were then shot before their bodies were dismembered in the bathroom. The body parts were then distributed in dumpsters around Ocean City. Erika claims to have been only a passive participant, with BJ shooting and dismembering the couple, and her only being involved in helping with the disposal. BJ would try to counter this view at the later trials. Searches of landfills resulted in Joshua's torso and arms, but only one of Jeannie's legs being recovered. The rest of the remains of both bodies have never been found. The trials of BJ and Erika Sifrit were separate events, 2 months apart in March and June of 2003 respectively, and they had surprisingly different outcomes. Though both trials were polarized towards painting their respective defendants in the most positive possible light. They were both extremely compelling trials that could warrant videos in and of themselves. But I will try to summarize as best I can. In both of the trials, the star witness was a lady called Melissa Selling, who described a situation she faced along with her friend Justin Wright. A situation with marked similarities to what happened to Josh and Jeannie. In both trials, Melissa described that she and Justin were invited to hang out with the Sifrits at their apartment. And after spending time in the hot tub, Melissa and Justin were accused of stealing Erika's purse, after which the Sifrits became unhinged and BJ was brandishing a handgun. While Melissa and Justin ultimately left this scenario unhurt, Melissa was in no doubt that both Erika and BJ would have been capable of the murders, but she had no way of knowing who was responsible for the actual actions involved in killing Josh and Jeannie. But Melissa said that given their shared complicity, she felt that it made no difference who actually fired the fatal shots, as it was effectively a joint enterprise. At the end of BJ's trial, after 14 hours of deliberation, he was convicted of the second-degree murder of Jeannie Crutchley, but weirdly was found not guilty of the murder of Josh Ford. He was found guilty of being an accessory after the fact for the dismemberment and disposal of the bodies. And he also pleaded guilty for the burglary of Hooters and for carrying a gun during that break-in. So the upshot of all of that was that he ultimately received a sentence of 30 years for the murder, 5 years for the accessory charge, and 3 years for the burglary, meaning a total of 38 years. But Judge Paul Weinstein made clear his dismay at the jury verdict, making a statement saying, "This was nothing more than a thrill killing that you and your wife committed. You're a butcher. You murdered these people for no good reason. I don't know what possessed you to do what you did. And I don't know what possessed your wife to do what she did. I do know that if it wasn't for the masterful job your lawyers did in this case, you would probably be facing a life sentence. But the jury has spoken, and I am bound by what the jury has said in this case. It's one of the few instances in 20 years that I disagree with the jury's verdict. Erika's trial had a different outcome, despite the bulk of the evidence being the same. She was sentenced to life in prison for the first-degree murder of Josh Ford, plus 20 years for the murder of Jeannie. But suffice to say that both of these fuckwits faced very lengthy prison sentences. BJ was denied parole in 2022, and Erika will be eligible for parole in 2024. BJ is serving his time at the Roxbury Correctional Facility in Hagerstown, while Erika is at the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women in Jessup. Do you think these sentences were right and fair? Have your say and put your comments in the usual place down there. But whatever your thoughts on this despicable pair, we need to remember the victims in this case. Jeannie Crutchley and Joshua Ford were in the early stages of their life together as a couple, and were very much enjoying their lives, and were looking forward to many more years together before their lives were stolen by a pair of selfish cockwombles. This video is, of course, dedicated to them, and indeed to anyone whose lives were affected by the actions of these monsters. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. I have to say at this point, no hooters were harmed in the making of this episode. I'm Steve. This here is Samson. And we will see you when we see you.